everybody, it's Firewizard23. I just wanted to do a little video segment here because I wanted to talk about my response to Anita Sarkeesian's Tropes versus Women, the Damsel in Distress Part 1. There's been a lot of things on the internet about how people feel about what she's posted and what she's said, a lot of which is frankly quite negative. And I'm going to do not only my analysis of the Part 1 of the Damsel in Distress, but I'd also like to talk about how I feel about people's responses to things, and I just want to guide people in, and I understand this might be a little bit late to the game, but any discussion is positive, and I think that's really the ultimate intent of Anita's piece, is trying to help people have some reasonable discussion about what she has created. So, I just finished watching the entire piece. I had actually seen it before, I just wanted to watch it again. And I have watched the other parts, and before I do videos on those, if you want me to, or if I choose to, I'm going to actually watch those parts again. I do have, like, notes here and stuff I've made about how I feel about those pieces. And I'm going to so I have the most up-to-date in my mind of what the piece was actually about. So the first major point she makes about the damsel in distress refers to the character of Crystal from Dinosaur Planet, who, rather than being the character she was initially supposed to be, she was transitioned into a damsel in distress for Star Fox, and the game was rechristened Star Fox Adventures. The best rebuttal I have heard for this, I have to admit, hearing that story, okay, I have to admit that's a little bit disempowering to women. I would find it much more disempowering to her if we made Dinosaur Planet exactly the way it was supposed to be. She was going to be, I'm kick butt warrior, and then she became the damsel in distress, like, in the second game. And then she just stayed that way throughout the entire series. Okay, then I would kind of have a problem. I would have a bigger problem with that, because, okay, that's just complete women disempowerment. My argument was she was kind of in the development phases, so I don't really have as much of an issue as that, because the main public never saw her as Crystal, except in, like, that promotional video, they never saw that. And I could put that the same way as, like, Conker's, Conker, remember when, like, Conker was gonna be, like, Conker's Adventures in Time or something like that, and, like, at the very beginning of the 64 lifestyle, and then it just kept on getting delayed and delayed, and finally it became Conker's Bad Fur Day? I view it as kind of like that. The idea morphed and changed. And what I was saying, the best argument I've ever heard against that is, as a counter rebuttal, is that the most practical reason that was probably done is because Star Fox was an established character. That's why that was done. Why would you try out with a brand new character that you have no experience with versus one that you already know is going to work? I have another point onto that, but I'll come back to that too. A big argument made for that a big discussion she has regarding damsel in distress is that it's supposed to emphasize the chivalry and romanticism of the man. That, oh, we are doing this for our own sense of our gallantry. We're doing this because this is what we need to do. We need to save the lady. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that. I don't think Anita ever made a point of saying that was wrong. I think she's just saying that's something we should look at in terms of video games. And a good supplement argument I've heard to that from other people is that this isn't so much about the woman being the damsel, this is about the man being the hero. We love or care about this female to the point, look at what the lengths we're willing to go to save them. That's an important aspect of these tropes, of this whole dynamic as well. Again, I'll take that. That's a fair dynamic. I agree with that. I like that. That makes sense to me. She brought up the ideas of Popeye and King Kong being how 50 years later that would begat Donkey Kong, which I guess originally was supposed to be Popeye. I'll have to go with her historical accuracy on that, but I've heard that echoed before. And that it basically took on the form of King Kong, which I think everyone knows the famous MGM lawsuit that occurred from that. Saying that it basically makes women, it objectifies women, saying they essentially become an object to be acted upon. She's right. Okay, that's exactly what they are. When Princess Peach is captured and you go to save her, she's an object. She doesn't become anything more than that. She makes a cake. I mean, I can't really deny that. When the woman is captured at the beginning of Double Dragon, she's an object. She's being rescued. And I don't think we can really intellectually deny that. I don't think she's being unfair in that statement. Saying that she said that the proliferation of such damsel in distress tropes throughout the early 80s and 90s fed into power fantasies of male gamers, and I definitely see that it leads into our psychology, that we kind of think that that's how it's supposed to work. My own self being a gay man, it certainly gives me this idea that I'm supposed to be dominant over women. And, understand, before I'd even really acknowledge my own sexuality, but that's a message I'm getting. I'm getting a message of a power dynamic that men save women. And I have to admit, a lot of games have that. She also brought up the idea of Zelda being captured versus Princess Peach, and let's go to just my understanding, because a big argument that I have about the damsel in distress trope is how what she's talking about is, how much is the lady in question actually a person? And when you talk about someone like, say, Princess Peach, she's Princess Peach, okay? She's not really an in-depth three-dimensional character. I don't think a lot of women aspire to be Princess Peach, aspire to be just hollow and vacuous and to bake Mario a cake. I don't think that's what most women are. Zelda, I would argue. I think a lot of women would aspire to be Zelda, given the history that we know of her now, of who Zelda is, coming from being a reborn of the god Hylia, and the integral role she plays in the Kingdom of Hyrule. I argue that she is someone that they would aspire to be, because Zelda has had her moments. I mean, I take from not just video games, but I take from the cartoon show, where she was actually the much more power-centric character in a cartoon show. Skill with the bow, skill in magic. She's not as helpless as Peach is. I would give that credit. Zelda being captured, and that Zelda may have an extended role. She made the point that in Ocarina of Time, that she actually evaded capture for 3/4 of the game, being Sheik. And then when she transforms towards the end of the game back into Princess Zelda to give the plot, she's captured in like 3 minutes. I have a complaint about that. My complaint is, this wasn't about Zelda. That's my argument from the narrative standpoint of the game. This doesn't have to do with Zelda. This has to do with the Triforce of Wisdom. That's why she was captured. That's been a very clearly established lore of Hyrule, that to get the golden power to capture all 3 pieces, if someone who isn't... When you grab the Triforce, the Holy Triforce, it breaks off into its 3 parts, but you keep the one that is most aligned to you. For the most part, that has been Ganondorf, who has grabbed the Triforce. And the only part that stays with him is power, and he has to seek out the other 2 pieces. He has to find and defeat the 2 people who have the other pieces, which, get this, are Link and Zelda. So I would argue that she is more part of this trifecta of these 3 power forces, and especially like Skyward Sword, and the games that have really expanded on the lore of her, the trail of her character. She's had a much greater role. And I actually make the argument that she made the ultimate sacrifice in the Fallen Hero timeline to seal away Ganon. I make that argument that at the very end of the Fallen Hero timeline, where we have the Sleeping Princess, I believe that is the Ocarina of Time Princess. That's who I believe that is, because I believe she made the ultimate sacrifice, giving up her life force to seal away Ganon. That's what I believe she did. So that's my thought there. As she did make a point about Tetra in Wind Waker, but I haven't played Wind Waker, so I can't really speak upon what happened with Tetra there. She made reference to the Zelda ad, will you save the girl, will you play like one? That, I believe, is more of a push to adolescent males, where, are you going to save the girl, or are you going to play like one? And I can't deny that's kind of feeding into male gamers, which is another really good rebuke I heard about these damsel in distress things. Most gamers were male. So that was, and the argument proceeding, so it was wrong to make games that were for guys? And so guys would want to play guys who rescue girls? I don't really have facts and figure on that, but I'm going to generally assume that was true. That, gamer girl has really become a much more current notion. I can't deny them for wanting to make games that would cater to men. Let's be fair about that. Let's see what else I have here from mails. Can I remember what the other thing was I wanted to mention, Crystal? Oh, one thing that was mentioned. I feel like I might be repeating something, but it was the thing I wanted to mention way earlier about Crystal. That. Oh, that's right. She showed a sequence back with Dinosaur Planet when it got changed to Star Fox Adventures, where Star Fox is like ogling at Crystal. Whoa, she's beautiful. He's like totally ogling her. The argument was made that that pretty much what I've heard echoed from a lot of gamers, a lot of gamers who rebuked her, is that, well, the damsel, and she said this too, the damsel in distress trope, damsel in distress is just easy to convey quickly. And it's an easy writing way out. It's like, oh, a girl's been captured, go save her. But the game is not necessarily about her. Super Mario Bros. Let's take the original Super Mario Bros. For the NES. Yes, Princess Toadstool has been captured, and you have to go rescue her through these 8 worlds of these 4 different stages each. That's the gameplay. The gameplay is not at the end of every level, we think about what we're going to do to Princess Peach once we find her. That's not what the game is about. The gameplay is what's going to work. I mean, you can say this is the ultimate goal of the game, but that's not going to sustain a game. There was a game, I believe, called the Guy Game that got a horrid review for just really being just porn. Just guys wanting to see girls whip out their boobs. And it didn't sell well because that really wasn't a good game. Or, I mean, some people might have bought it, but didn't really have any substance to it. The reason that Zelda works, the reason that Mario Brothers works, is because the gameplay works. It's not because of this trope of damsel in distress. But it's not wrong to actually look at it. To acknowledge that it's there. That's not wrong to just acknowledge that it's there. Okay, disempowering females for the purpose of empowering males. I say that's a very broad... If it was just one game that did this, I couldn't agree with that. But knowing that a lot of games do that, have damsels in distress with male protagonists saving them, you know what? I can't really deny that that's true. I don't think that's true, and I think it's worth sitting down around a coffee table having a discussion about. What does this do to culture as a whole? Men are made to think and use their brains and brawn to escape their problems, whereas women are generally seen as incapable of doing such and must need a man for rescue. Again, following the same idea, men are sometimes in a captured situation. They use their brains and brawns and wits to get out, but women can't. Can't deny that. In fact, I want to share something with you. I did a piece I can't remember what course, but I did a study of Yu-Gi-Oh! At least of the first 2 seasons, the one where he's fighting Maximilian Pegasus, and the one where he goes to, where Kaiba's having that big Battle City tournament. And I made a really compelling argument about how the female characters basically never win, and it's a very male-centric universe. I wish I had that paper. Still, maybe it's buried in my computer somewhere, but it was shocking when I really sat back and just examined it. Wow, Yugi as a character always wins. The female characters, while they have some victories, ultimately succumb to men to win. Even the blind character, Serenity, she does ultimately get a victory over the guy who was like the perfect Machine King. When they were inside that holographic thing, she ultimately does get a win using St. Joan, but it's a tie, it's a stalemate. She doesn't actually beat him in the contest, she just destroys the perfect Machine King with a perfect tie on. She couldn't actually just beat him. It was really kind of fascinating. She argued that a lot of older games are being re-released to kind of cash in on the fact that people still want to see that. I think that's a stretch. I think that's a bit of a stretch. She brought up Dragon Lair and Daphne, which I thought, and Daphne being, the dragon's captured me. I think there's a key around his neck. You have to use a magic sword. I'm surprised she did not bring up the fact that Don Bluth openly admitted to using Playboy centerfold models for Daphne's various poses. He blatantly admitted that. Again, I would argue that the point of that game wasn't Daphne. I mean, the ending of the game is fairly, she kisses you and everyone's happy. The point of that game wasn't that. The point of the game was just the actual action gameplay, which was revolutionary for, wasn't that 83 or something like that? It was revolutionary for the time. Oh no, 82 I think it was. She mentioned Double Dragon, where sometimes when the girl's being dragged away, you see her underwear. and saying, that's objectifying her so guys can see that. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. Not saying the guys who make the games are a bunch of pervs, but, I mean, you can't deny the fact that that's there. Promoting the idea that women are naturally the weaker gender and video game having an overall influence, I generally tend to agree with that. I cannot help that this is going to, when thousands upon thousands upon millions of people play these games, it's going to have an overall effect on the general understanding of women and who they are and how they should be viewed. I like the piece. I think she did a really good job here. I think she does not really make an attack. She just says what is fact. And I don't think she's wrong here. I really don't think she's wrong. And now let's talk about the people who rebuke her. A lot of people do a really good job rebuking her, and have said a lot of the points that I brought up. Isn't this more about how men feel empowered, about how we love and care about these people when we go to rescue them? Isn't it more the fact that damsel in distress is just a really easy thing to portray quickly, and so it's more just about lazy writing? Those are intellectual rebuttals. I'm sure Anita has absolutely no problem with that. She doesn't seem like she's an unintelligent person. I'm sure she's more than happy to have counter rebuttals and things that are intellectually responsible. And then we have the people who say, get your head out of your vagina. When you trash her for just being a woman, she's trying to have an opinion and that she hasn't gotten laid and that she's ugly, you're only making her look right. Knock it off. Seriously. We're better than this. And we can't, how far are we coming as just a culture when we can't even accept the fact that a woman is coming up with ideas and she's just bringing up a very good intellectual ideas and just bringing them up? Or if anyone does. What if I had just said all these things and all of a sudden would I just be the villain because because I'm just trying to take away your sense of your video games? And she's not even trying to do that. She's not trying to take these things away. She's not saying they can't exist. She just wants to have an intellectual conversation about them. It disgusts me how some gamers have responded to this, how some people have responded to Anita. It disgusts me how people have hacked her Facebook and Twitter, and how people have just gotten so mad about all the support she's received. Like she wasn't deserving of saying something. Yes, you know what? She is a stated feminist. I don't see anything feminist about what she's written here. I don't. Thanks for your time, everybody. Please leave your comments below. I hope you'll be constructive, but if you want to just be hate-filled and tell me that you hate my position because I support Anita, then so be it. Take care, everybody.